Welcome to another session of the Fourth Place podcast. We are pumped to have another guest with us here today. As you know, per usual, we want to take the first couple of minutes, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what business you're with, what organization you're with, and especially let us know immediately how people can find you.
Okay, great introduction. Thanks for having me, Justin, and excited to be here. My name is Steve Ringlespaugh. I work for Beautiful Redemption. We use the tool of Care Portal to help connect kids and families in crisis to a community that cares. We'll get into that in a little bit. You can go to beautifulredemption.com, find all the information about how to contact us, how to get involved, how to support the ministry. That is going to be your home site to go to.
Awesome, I love that. And surprise question, follow-up.
Ooh, yes.
Can you tell us just a quick success story, right? So we have the organization, we know where to go, but like, what does this practically look like? When you have a definition of success moment with your ministry, what's a story that you can share? You don't need to give us any details or whatever, obviously, but tell us a story that's one of the most impactful and meaningful for you that shows the power of what your organization does.
I'm just going to go with the most recent one. I was just talking to one of our church leaders. They saw a request on Care Portal from a woman in crisis. She was at the Department of Human Services, or she had a caseworker there, and she didn't have enough for, she was having a baby, and she had absolutely nothing. And she needed everything. She needed a crib, diapers, wipes, everything. And so the caseworker put a request into Care Portal, and then this church answered it. And they saw the request, and it was like, well, are you having a baby shower or anything? And this poor lady didn't have a friend in the world. There was just nobody in her community that knew her, that saw her, that could help her. And so she just put out a request on Care Portal through her caseworker who vetted that need. And our church lady got back to her and she's like, oh, can we throw her a baby shower? Would she be okay with that?
Yeah.
And so then this lady who's having the baby and this church lady got together and they hosted this incredible baby shower.
Wow.
Had all these ladies from the church come and just blew her away. And it was a cry fest the entire time. But now that lady, she's coming to church and she's getting plugged into community. And the point was that she felt seen and loved, and she felt like somebody's heard her and responded to her.
Wow.
And she saw the love of Christ through all that. And just changed the course of her life. And that was last week I heard that story.
And that's just last week.
That was last week.
That isn't even
that's the freshest story I got.
Story, 5 years ago, technically.
Just keep going back to that one story.
Yeah. No, but that's awesome. I mean, that's, it's so amazing to work with yet another leader and have somebody on our show that's making a massive, massive impact, right? We have some folks that are, focused on impact investing, some folks that are helping entrepreneurs grow their companies, and some people like you who are providing a platform to provide direct, relatable, real-time needs that people need. So that's awesome, man. That's great. So as you know, because we did the pre-show, we're going to go through the different places of your life.
Let's do it.
Let's dissect a little bit about how you got to be where you are.
Okay.
And that first place, home.
Yeah.
Tell me a story really specifically about growing up, whether that was with your family of origin, whether it was an experience in school or college or adolescence, or just surprise us. But what's something that really stands out for you that there was this moment in my home place, in my childhood, that really created a certain way that I looked at the world, or created an opportunity for me to learn a skill set or go through an experience that said, I think I want to make a big difference one day. And I know the big difference part because of what you do professionally, right?
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about that moment that you had, or moments that really contributed to the leader that you are today.
Yeah. So you want to get into my childhood trauma?
Let's do it, dude. Let's go.
Let's go.
We have a hotline as well.
If I get all weepy on camera here, I'm sorry. But honestly, it goes way far back. My dad got sick with cancer when I was 7 years old, and he passed away when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And so directly after that, there's this huge void in my life. I lost my dad. I lost the provider for our family. I lost my best friend. Wow. And I was a child. And so I had no idea how to process any of this stuff. So I remember I took a few days off of school and we had the funeral and everything. And I remember just like sitting around at home by myself. My mom's in her own grieving thing and everybody's struggling. And there's a knock on the door. We open the door. My mom's opens the door and it's somebody with lasagna.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know who you are. Thanks for the lasagna, as much as a 9-year-old can care about lasagna. But then the next day, somebody else came to the house. And, you know, they had cookies and maybe like a toy package or something for me or something. I was like, thank you. And that just kept happening, like day after day after day. And that was before Sign Up Genius or Care Portal or anything. And I look back, somebody else showed up and then took me to a hockey game. And I couldn't even tell you his name.
Wow.
I don't even remember that guy's name. I couldn't get a hold of him if I wanted to. But I remember in the darkest points of my life, feeling like I wasn't alone. And that changed the course of my life. And so and from there, really wanted, how do we create this to where people going through crisis are in the most vulnerable places in their life? And sometimes they're the most isolated that they've ever been.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be like, hey, I'm in crisis. I'm in panic mode. Could you just be here and bring me lasagna? I don't even know what I need. Maybe it is lasagna. I don't know. But how can I give that back? And so I got into youth ministry and I wanted to be there for young people when they didn't have the words to say, I need help, or they didn't even know that they weren't okay. But I wanted to be with them and walk with them through that process. And that really turned into, I won't get into that story, but just a long visionary thing. Like my name is Stephen. And then in the Bible, you've got Stephen who's charged with taking care of orphans and widows. And I was like, oh, there's like a whole God moment there that happened.
I cannot escape this.
I can't get away from this. It was destiny. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. And I found I loved youth ministry and I loved walking with kids. But what ended up kind of gripping me, I was a youth pastor for about 10 years. And at this point I was at a church and we had this great youth group. We had a youth group of like 100 kids at a church of like 125. Oh, wow. Like awesome youth group. And God was like, so like, are you going to love kids if they come through your door? Yeah. I was like, oh, you know I will. I'm going to do this. And we've got these leaders and we've got these structures and everything. Like everyone's going to get loved when they come in this door. Wow. And he goes, that's awesome. Wow. But what about if they don't come in your door? It's like, no, I won't love them. I don't know how. And that was this kind of like rock that was like shifting my trajectory to like, isn't the point of this, like Simon Sinek had a great quote where he said, any institution or organization that exists but doesn't exist in some way to serve outside of its four walls is a vanity project.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And here I was a pastor and I didn't have the faintest clue of how to serve outside my four walls. And I was like, but this is why I wanted to be here. Going back to like my childhood, I really wanted to find those kids and families in crisis. And how do we rally the church around and the community in general? How do we rally them around to share that burden with them?
Well, just first of all, that was not planned by way of not knowing everything that happened in his childhood and how that really does tie into who you are in your business. And thanks for being so transparent. And I'm so sorry for your loss and what you experienced. And it's a beautiful, no pun intended for real, but a beautiful redemptive story to say, well, what you did with that pain and that struggle, or even just the confusion, right? Just being so young. And I do love the part, like even the guy who took me to the hockey, like I don't know who that guy was. Like my life was transformed at 19 years old by a young man named Nicholas Girk, and I will say his name because if anybody knows him, I would love to thank his family, because he ended up not living a very long time after he helped me. Yeah. And his family never met me. His family has no idea that now for 17 years I've been on a mission to help leaders and businesses and other people like me even stay sober. And so I say that all to say it is, you just never know what that lasagna, that 12-step meeting, what that meeting after the meeting, that coffee, that hockey game. And so for those of you listening, like this is why we do what we do. Like I haven't told you about Complimentary. You already know that we have a company and do all the things, and we do want to make sure people know about his company so you can get involved. But like we wanted to create an atmosphere and an environment where we can inspire others to inspire other people. And I love that about Simon Sinek. I had never heard that quote.
Yeah.
And another project I'm a part of is we talk about being community-led. And when we tell the story of what that organization does, we don't talk about the story of what that organization does by talking about the leaders, is we talk about the story of the leaders in the community and how those leaders in the community are helping the community be better. Not that there's like 3 or 4 of us that are saving the day because we have leadership titles. So anyway, just thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, talking about, I think that's what keeps people from getting involved in messy situations because, you know, oh, my friend has a drinking problem, or, you know, this family's in crisis. This girl needs a crib well, I don't have that. Like, I don't have the answer to their problems. And that keeps them from getting involved.
Yeah.
But really, in my life, what transformed my life wasn't that he had an extra dad from me.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't something that he could solve.
Yeah.
But he did have connection.
Yeah.
And that's what I bring away. Like, I felt connected. And that connection changes everything for people's lives. So if you're listening to this, you won't have all the answers. But you can be present. You can. It could be a hand on the shoulder. It could be it could be a conversation like you had. It could be a frappuccino. One of my teachers brought me a frappuccino on my worst day at school, and I was like, "Thank you."
Yeah. I mean, you never know. I mean, when I think about even the logistics of how my life was impacted, I probably spent a total. I mean, there's no way that I spent more than 10 hours with Nick, and that 10 hours. I mean, maybe somehow 20, but I don't think it's possible. I mean, I only knew him for 3 months anyway. But those 10 hours over 3 months, like, have not only changed my life, but has gone on to impact millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
And just what a crazy connection between direct things happened when you were young in your first place, and how that now, as we get into the second place, now how that is your entire second place.
Yeah.
So tell us, I know you talked about the organization, where to find you, you know, all the things, but what are the things that you also love about the work that you do? Like, what is it that, you know, makes you wake up early, stay up late? Like, what do you love about your second place being work? Tell me about what you love about that place.
Yeah.
And we'll get to what's frustrating, so don't worry.
I've got all this. I want to talk about what angers me.
Yeah.
No, I got a job offer the other day. And normally that would have been like, you know, for years, that would have been like the holy grail of what I always wanted to do. And I got this job offer and I was like, I love where I'm at. If I could work, if I was financially independent, I would still be doing this.
Yep.
Like, if I didn't need another nickel, I don't do this because for the money. I mean, everybody needs an income. But I was like, if I were retired, I would still be doing what I'm doing. And I'd be spending time with my family. I'd be doing this meaningful work.
Yeah.
And I think what kind of drives this whole thing is there's such a disjointed community out there where there's so many nonprofits and there's so many great institutions and leaders, and like we're all trying to do something. And sometimes it kind of just turns into noise where like everybody's trying to do something at once. And what draws this, you know, what I love about this is that I feel like I get to kind of like take the best of what everybody's doing and be like, cool, this isn't about me. This isn't my banner and my logo and my ego. It's just like, you do something great. Could we do it together? And great people are always like about collaboration. They're like, yeah, because we can do more together. And I love that synergy that happens when I get, you know, churches in an area that all of a sudden have come together as if they're one force. Or these businesses are doing this, and it's like, okay, no, we're united in this. Yeah, sure, you do countertops and you do toiletries or whatever, but like we're united because we care about the community. And I think that's one thing. There's so many things in our world that is just trying to disrupt unity, and humanity seems to be always on a thread of just like nobody's connecting. People are not having conversations. You know, there's more arguments and not listening to each other. I'm like, could we agree that like families in crisis are important? And maybe this is my sphere of influence. I can't change the politics. I can't change if wars happen.
Presidential election next, but I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
There's so many things that I can't impact, but like this is my privilege to be able to like, okay, could I create a network or an ecosystem of people working together that is going to outlive me? Like when we started, our lofty goal was like, in our lifetime, let's serve 10,000 kids in our entire lifetime.
Yeah.
That was 8 years ago. And now we've served 27,000 kids.
There you go. Round of applause.
So we're like 100,000.
Like, you know,
Golf clap.
Golf clap.
Yes.
So you've served 20, so your goal was 10,000.
Yeah.
And you did 27,000.
Yeah. So Beautiful Redemption
Okay.
manages
Yeah.
the Care Portal network
Yeah.
for Colorado and New Mexico.
Okay.
We're trying to get New Mexico off the ground. Colorado has been around for about 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
started in El Paso. That first year we served 1,000 kids,
Wow.
which blew all of our minds because we were like, we'll see if this thing works. We haven't tried it before.
Yeah.
So nationally, Care Portal has served hundreds of thousands of kids, but our little
Quick
section
question
here-
on New Mexico. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
it's totally good interruption.
Go for it.
New Mexico.
Yeah.
How is that going? Do you need people? Do you need leaders? Like, tell me
Yeah.
about, like, maybe if you had a way to, you know, let the world know what you needed, what would that be?
We actually just had a really great call with somebody higher up. I won't go into the details, but the child welfare system in New Mexico is under some serious fire.
I can see that.
And so we've been trying to kind of get our foot in the door for, you know, a few years kind of here and there. It's like, you know, when you're talking to somebody and they're like, sorry, no, like the house is on fire. It kind of always seems like that. But we want to come in and say, hey, we want to help resource you. We want to bring the community together to help provide for some of these families. And so when we can get that ear that is willing to hear, which hopefully we're getting, yes, it costs finances. We need to, you know, I live in Colorado. I can't be down there managing it. So we need to hire somebody. We need to.
So you're actively looking for a leader in New Mexico.
Hey, there we go.
Okay.
Actively looking for leaders in New Mexico.
Are you looking for leaders in any other states?
Right now, New Mexico and
Okay.
Colorado is us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah. But if you're passionate about Care Portal and what we're doing, I'm an implementing partner, and so we need implementing partners all over the
Okay.
U.S. So if you're interested in creating your own ecosystem, go to careportal.org, start poking around there. We need implementers
Nice.
because
And you
they
have
make
a-
the technology.
And you have a referral number. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, 11477. That'll give me a kickback. That'll be great.
But
Make my day.
so speaking of, you know, just, you know, other things, you know, growth and leaders and higher ups
Yeah.
in your business, and you know, and everybody knows I always ask these questions. In your business, were you stuck? Were you frustrated? Because we find when we, as leaders, myself included, when we talk about where we're growing, where we're learning, where we're, you know, some people literally like, they're like, I need $1 million. If I
Yeah.
don't get $1 million, like my company is going to fail. Or
Yeah.
I need 5 more salespeople. Or I was just on with a client that we're working this morning. His number one issue is production.
Yeah.
He's in the information lead space, and he could sell 1,000, you know, even leads in the future, but he has to produce them. And so
Yeah.
like call centers and like all these things, international work, but his number one, like if he doesn't solve this, it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
So do you have one of those, like, oh my gosh, like if I don't solve this, I'm gonna be stuck here forever, or I'm gonna be at this, you know, limited capacity or limited impact? Like, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you're like, if these 2 or 3 things could change in my business,
Yeah.
like it would be like game over.
Yeah.
Right? What would it
Hands
be?
down, it's just finding churches to respond, and maybe that's a marketing thing. Really, it's provided to churches. Care Portal, any church can just sign up and become a church and serve kids and use the
Sure.
platform.
Yep.
And so the most frustrating part is when we're like, okay, cool. So tell me about your church, and they're like, we're passionate about outreach. Cool. Like, here's a free tool so you can do more effective outreach. How else can I serve you? And they're like, that's cool.
And it's I'm praying for you, but then nothing happens. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, good for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so if you're interested in this, like I'm not asking you for money. I'm literally here as a free gift. This should help transform the way that you serve families in your direct community. And they're like, man, that's really what we're looking for.
You know, I've got a
And we were talking about that last meeting. I'm just like,
Yeah.
is the way that I'm phrasing it, am I pitching it wrong or something? Because I'll get people who are interested in it. But then, like, when it comes to pulling the trigger and, you know, creating the account and getting people to sign up and use it, that's when because that would be the linchpin to everything. If we had, maybe it's a marketing ploy or something, like, We have less than 10% of the churches in Colorado. Way less than 10%. Yeah. I forget what the numbers are.
Like, but they're so small you don't want to remember them.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're different in different counties, so it's confusing. Yeah. But in some counties we have 10%. But if we had 10%, just 10% of the churches just using the program, like, we'd be able to serve dozens of thousands of kids every year.
Yeah.
And it would just like take Colorado by storm, like the power of churches and businesses and individuals like getting into this. Yeah. And so that's the linchpin. Like, if we can solve that mystery, how do we really incentivize churches to use this and get active with it? My goodness, we could change the landscape for decades and decades to come, lifetimes.
So my response is not a surprise to you, but it will be directed at you and others out there that are listening that have some type of what I would call a freemium business model, right? And not like what I call, like, I didn't invent that term, right?
I like it. I've never heard it.
Well,
I'm going to give you credit.
$5. Freemium. So a freemium business model, or even a specific business model that has subscriptions or services or products. There's SLOs, self-liquidating offers, and like front end, like all the jargon, right? So just listen to me on this. Just stay with me listening through this. If you have a free product, I've had a free product before. I've had several free products and services, and I have had a tough time getting, what do you call it, product market fit, like just real talk, like people to participate in the free product or service. And so all the way to the extent to where I had spent more money than I'd like to admit. So that's, a couple of six-figure checks to different peoples and coaches. So, we burned up, a couple $100,000, which I don't take lightly. Like, that's not a good thing. Yeah. But we were trying. And so we spent over $200,000 with a specific company in creating essentially a learning management system that had all this free content that helped people with all their financial goals to do all these things. And it was literally, we have all of these geniuses, some of which have like launched public companies, some of which are like computer scientists, some of them are literally world-renowned investors and geniuses in their space. All of these geniuses have come together and said, these are the 8 modules that everybody should go through if you want to have financial freedom. I then hired a Department of Defense level instructional designer, like PhD level instructional design, then a curriculum coordinator, and there's another expert I literally can't even remember right now, but I hired 3 different experts in addition to the marketing experts to put together the most amazing product ever. And we literally could not give it away for free. We even tried to charge, like, $9.97 or $9.90, like, but we could not. And to date, this is now years old. It's just brutal. No one has ever actually participated in that course, even though it's free. And anybody in the world, if I told you to go look at it, nobody has ever actually downloaded it and gone through more than like 2 pages of it. And it isn't because it isn't the right information. It isn't because it isn't quality. It isn't because it wasn't designed well. I mean, I know that literally the pedagogy, which if you're familiar with that term, right, like the pedagogy of it is even sound. Like, this course will do what it's supposed to do to help you reach financial freedom goals. But nobody, even those of you that are listening, I assure you, you have tuned out a little bit as I described to you what the course was and who wrote it and how I built it. I was talking about the wrong part of the thing that I built. And it didn't matter that it was free. It didn't matter that, let's make it premium. But maybe the issue is that it's free. So let's make it $1,000. Like, we literally could not figure out how to get people to be engaged with it until we took all of that story that I just mentioned and like shrunk it down to 2 sentences, which is, we have the 8 simple steps to learn how to invest in this thing. But that's all we ever spoke about it, and that's all we mentioned. What we spoke about instead is, have you ever been somebody like what, and you've heard me say this before, but a Henry, it's an acronym for a high earner but not rich yet. Have you ever been somebody who's like a successful professional, but you're laying there at night doing the math saying, I cannot save my way to retirement. I cannot save my way to financial freedom. Have you ever been a successful professional and you're doing the math and you know that you're not going to be able to get there? And now I get the head nodding, because nobody cares about the Department of Defense. Nobody cares about instructional design. Maybe 2 of you Googled pedagogy to see if I even said it right. You know what I mean? But what people resonate with is the story the relatability and the outcome. The outcome is I don't want to lay awake at night doing math saying, I can't believe it. I'm finally making a couple $100,000 a year, but because I got all these kids and all their teeth are messed up and they need these braces, like, oh, like I cannot get there. I cannot save my way to financial freedom. When we talked about that and said that that's what this company did, and then we, happen to have this like 8-step thing that you should go do. Then people participated in it. And so I had to learn how to tell the story of what I did in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And so my guesstimate, because some people may even say, well, investing in churches, like that's so different. Nope. These are people that are running businesses that happen to be churches that are designed, I know I'm saying a lot, but love me through it,
awesome.
These are leaders of small businesses called church leaders that are designed to help people inside the walls of their church and have a passion to help people outside of their church, but they have limited time and limited energy. And so what I need to talk about is how I bring capacity to them and time to them and time savings and results and help, and I do so in a way to where I'm not asking your people inside of your four walls to come do anything for me or with me. So I need to talk about how I'm solving the problems that they have, and that happens to happen through this thing called Care Portal. Oh, and it doesn't even cost anything. But if I start with, don't worry, it's free, and don't worry, like I would assume that maybe there's some shifts that I know I had to learn, and maybe you could learn, and other people listening too, is if you know what you do is amazing, and you know what you do works, and you're not getting sales, whether that's for free or not, there's a communication issue. And not even like marketing, well, I can't spend, I could spend more money on advertising. We're gonna be advertising the wrong messages yet again, right? So I don't know if any of that resonates with you.
Oh, yeah.
So thoughts
start
and
with
feedback.
that. I can't tell you
how great I am. No,
yeah.
But like, does that resonate?
I've done so many of my meetings where I'm
Yeah.
like, so here's the system, here's how it works, and I get into a how it works conversation.
I know. I've done
And I'm
it
like,
too.
all the bells and whistles, and you can do this, and like, and they're like, this is great. It looks like it works, and that's where I get that kind of like, cool, it works, and it's like, but I was successful. I showed them it works, and they're like, yeah, it works. But then the follow through of just like, okay, how do we get to that point? Yeah. Start with the outcome in mind. That's really good.
So is there any other stuck point with this like live on demand communications that we're doing here? Is there any, so yes, if you had more customers, that would fix your problem.
Yeah.
For sure. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a small nonprofit, we've always had the whole dollar amount, right? We're trying to raise a certain amount of money. And so we give these things away for free. And then if you're doing Care Portal, you might be like, I do Care Portal, what's Beautiful Redemption? So it's like, well, we actually make it work. Without us, it wouldn't be here. But we're kind of like behind the veil that's behind the veil. So sometimes if people are even really active in the Care Portal community, they are super generous and they're helping families and donating to things and stuff. And it's great. And they're like, but what's Beautiful Redemption? I don't get that. So that maybe is another marketing piece for us as well, to be like, no, but we still need to raise money. If we're going to go launch in New Mexico, if we're going to spread here in Colorado, we don't want to do this on a shoestring thing of just like, Steve, run down to New Mexico every other weekend and then run up to, Jefferson County and then to Pueblo and do whatever you can do. It's like, no, we need people on the ground who know what they're doing and can spread this. And we can't do that without raising more funds.
How much money are you raising and what do you need it for and when do you need to buy it?
Whew, very direct questions.
That's why my microphone's bigger.
Yeah.
I'm just getting the same microphone.
We run on a budget of a little under $500,000 per year.
So, but how much are you raising? Like, how much are you like, meaning like, I'm currently raising $1 million.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that because I'm hiring 3 people because I can't run around and do all this for free. One of them is going to be in New Mexico. Another one's going to be in Fort Collins, and another one of them is going to be in Pennsylvania. Crazy story. I'll tell you about it later, right? And then I need that because these people's time will ensure success when we get all these churches.
Yeah.
And I need that by, if we had half of that by the end of the year. Like, tell me in those terms. So how much money are you raising?
Yep.
What are you going to do with it? And when do you need to buy?
Yeah. Well, 2 projects we're working on right now is expanding in the north, because we have Jefferson and Denver and kind of that area, but there's so much more further north, but it's kind of getting outside of our spheres of influence. I don't know anybody up there. And so in order to expand those areas, we need to hire somebody who is in that community, knows all the churches, is in the mix with it. And I just can't do that. You know, we need to grow our team. So in the north, there's about $200,000. We could get this thing off the ground and running for, you know, we could hopefully, if we serve 2,500 kids per year in the whole Denver metro area, I think within the next 3 years, we could serve 5,000 kids.
Awesome.
If we had the right people on the ground, expanding the network and not just towing the line.
That's good.
And very similar in New Mexico. With that, if we could hire somebody and then we had enough, a lot of the money would go back into the community, which we're actually responding to requests and funding things, and churches are picking up fundings and like to really put steroids on the whole thing. 200,000 in the north, 200,000 in the south, and we could actually, you know, double the size of our team and start really thriving in 2 separate areas at the same time. So that could be December. We could launch as soon as we have all of our ducks.
Give me $200,000 anytime you want.
Beautifulredemption.com. Click the donate button. $200,000. I don't know if there's a limit on that donate button.
There's a 10% set aside for complimenter. We have no affiliation. But cool. No, that's good.
Yeah.
And then what is your proof of impact? No, I'm totally kidding. I'm not
Here we go.
No, you're good.
Hey,
so
you haven't been sparing me any of the hard questions
right?
here, so put me on the line here.
No, but so as we kind of move along, as you know, working through the places. So now we've covered childhood, how that beautifully connected to your professional space and career now, how amazing your organization is, what you need, what you're working on, the value you bring to the communities. But now back to you. Tell me about like your gather places. Like, do you have a favorite third place? Like, where do you like to get away? Like, outside of changing the world.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, are you a secret bocce ball lover? I mean, I don't know. I actually don't really know
what
what
is
bocce ball is.
bocce ball?
I really don't know.
I was thinking squash. Is it somewhere around squash?
Or highlight.
Okay.
I think it's illegal now.
Yeah.
You're up.
First 2 things that come to mind. I ran every day for a long time, and we talked about running. And then my knees started to really hurt for some reason. And so I can't run as much, but I love going running, listening to a podcast. Plug right there. Listen to this one on my next run. And or a sermon, or maybe it's some kind of like music that is like de-stimulating from the point of just like removing myself from the daily problems and having some time to just kind of be in a different bubble. That's like, it's okay. Just breathe hard and look forward and just keep trucking. So I think running is incredibly therapeutic, and lifting weights less therapeutic and just kind of good overall health. But running, I can usually just find this free space where I can come back and you got the endorphins going, you're feeling inspired, and maybe you had this great idea because you finally got to unplug and actually not think about it, but kind of think about it. You know, when like your best ideas come in the shower?
Totally.
That's not my third space, the shower. But it's kind of similar.
I know that's many people, so
yeah. And the other one, I got
real quick though, are you trail or treadmill?
Trail. Oh, I can't do treadmill.
Yeah, dude.
I went on vacation.
I have a Peloton tread and I just like use it to put stuff on.
Gosh, I really tried, but it is like you're not going anywhere. So I'm exerting all this effort and I'm still here. But then when you're in the trails and you're like weaving in between trees and stuff, you're just like,
even with Peloton tread or any of those like big Lifetime TV ones, I'm like, this is disorienting for me to try to run and watch TV. Anyway.
So on the running though. So I did this challenge where I had to run every day for 75 days, and I started off and there was just
75 hard.
Okay, cool, so, plug 75 hard. It was life changing, honestly. But I started out and I was just running the sidewalk, and that was just straight 2 miles back. And I was just doing that. And then eventually I like looked up and saw this golf course, but it was like up on the hill. And I was like, that's pretty hilly. That is like straight up and down. And then you got the whole, like, if I do the whole 9 holes, like, what if I get one? So eventually I was like, I'm going to get to a place where I can do that golf course.
That's good.
And so then I started running the golf course in the morning before people were on it. And I just loved it. And then at the next point, I was like, I'm going to get all the way to the top of the hill. And instead of stopping at the top of the hill, now you get to sprint down it. Because usually I couldn't even get to the top of the hill without stopping. And there was a point where I got to the top and then I'd stop. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I've got all this momentum now. And I remember sprinting down this hill on the golf course. And then I could see the sidewalk where I started way down there.
That's cool.
And I remembered, you know, it started with this idea. What if I got up there?
Yeah.
But then by the time I got up there,
Yeah.
I was like, what if I got up there? And it just showed the power of small incremental changes, like switching the running path.
Yeah.
Or maybe I could sprint down this hill.
Yeah.
And it was just so true to life to where like you don't grow 100% in a year. Like maybe you grow 5, 10%. Maybe you grow 1% a day or 1% a week. But it's that small incremental growth that compounds to a point of just like, that sidewalk was so boring. It was right next to the road. Why would anybody want to run there? And now I'm sprinting down hills on the golf course with this beautiful scenery on this mountaintop.
Yeah. No, I love Daniels Park. I live down here in, or I guess we're in Springs. I live up in Castle Pines, but then I'll leave my neighborhood, run all the way to Daniels Park, over to Highlands Ranch, and then back behind Park Meadows, and just the mental victory of like running that distance and like covering all that ground. Like all these like people are driving that distance. Like, anyway, but it's like it's so gratifying to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Fourth place.
Fourth place, let's go.
Definition like we always do.
All right.
So the fourth place is where passion and motivation collide with a determined resolve to experience the life designed just for you. It truly is the Freedom Place, created by our founder and co-owner, Monty Elhip, my man. So what do you see as the mission and destiny chasing of your life? So your life mission and your destiny, like what are you chasing? Is it something different than what you're doing? Is it what you're doing?
Yeah.
Are you going to say, yo, I'm already in the fourth place, I win, I should be the host of this damn show? Like, tell me about that for you.
Wow, that is rich. It goes back to what you said with like starting with the outcome and let's work there from knowing what your outcome in. And I mentioned somebody offered me that job that used to would have been like, oh yes, let's do that. That's my dream. And now being like, no, like I'm actually in that dream right now. And I'm a pioneer at things. So like I'll shift and focus, but I feel like I'm constantly in situations that I'm uncomfortable where I'm just like, I suck at this. I really need to get better. Not in like a poo on yourself kind of thing, but it's just like, man, I really need to grow in this area. So that is constantly coming up where I feel like I need to grow and I need to challenge myself. But it's still all within this sphere of even a few years ago, looking back at our numbers and be like, wow, we were back there. And now we're here. And now I don't necessarily feel like emotionally like, oh, we're on the mountaintop now. I still feel in a lot of ways like we're just trying to figure this whole thing out and build the plane while we're going. But I love being in that space because it's not like I don't just clock in and be like 40 hours, cool, like go home. It's like, okay, here's the mission. We got to get to New Mexico. We got to have some calls with some people. We got to expand up north. And I love being in that space. And I don't know if within my lifetime I'll get to a place where, you know, I think we can radically shift the way that we care for kids and families in crisis, the foster care system, connect people to these needs. I think we can do so much within our lifetime. I don't think we'll ever like reach that summit where we're just like, there's no more kids left to serve. Like all of our families are good, man. And so I see that as something that carrot that'll constantly be out there. And I think we can hit some huge milestones. And I actually think by the time we hit those milestones, you know, the earthquake happens or whatever, something happens. We were just like, I'm so glad that we got here because now the scene has shifted. And we're so glad that we got here because if we weren't here at that point, we could have never gotten to that next place. And so I feel like there's constantly going to be this like next shove and, you know, environment disruptors that come out where we have to evolve and change and grow in different ways. And I feel good running in that direction because who knows when that next thing will come. And we're like, well, this changes the landscape entirely. So we have to change entirely and we have to keep up with this thing.
I would say that in the last 2 weeks specifically, what I've had to embrace without exaggeration or exception is not daily, but multiple times in a day, Okay, a new leadership energy is required for this. Okay, I thought the business was doing this and now it's doing this, so I need to now do this. Or, oh wow, I thought I would never ever have to do that or do that again. Not from a pride and ego sense, but
Right.
like every day I'm waking up, not because it's, I mean, there's a little bit of chaos, but I would say in leadership, if you don't have the capacity, and specifically entrepreneurship, and specifically, being, the person in the chair, the CEO, the executive director. I'm not saying other professionals can't relate, but there's something about if it is all on your shoulders, there is a daily or sometimes within a day reshuffling that you just have to get used to. Because if your go-to is, well, it's not fair because of this, or he could, or she could, or they could, like, that's like the coulda, shoulda, woulda, like that's, you're just not gonna make it, right? And so I'm telling you that now so you don't do it, so you will make it, right? But I say that to say is like, what I hear in that is you have accepted and are excited to be in a fourth place, which is not an arrival, but it is a lifestyle. To say that my fourth place is a long-term dedication to, as we say, a complimenter, to listen, to learn, and to lead. I'm always listening, I'm always learning, and then I lead. And sometimes I have to do that multiple times in a day because business is really stinking hard. And so if you're saying, and I really don't know, and this is a total rabbit trail, but kind of my
Let's
show.
take it.
So is folks that eventually, I mean, respect, and I'm obviously people do this, and maybe it's just my personality, but people that come up with daily routines, I mean, I don't know how to do that. Like, I'm training for a marathon, and I have things that I have to do, but like, it is not every day I wake up at 5:30. I have three kids. I've got like all this stuff. I've got travel. I've got podcasts. We all have stuff, right?
You got to run when you get home tonight.
Literally after dinner. So that'll be interesting, right? But like, I say that all to say is like being comfortable with inconsistency. And that's where I think when we talk about, Complimenter talks about mission, priority, and goals, a lot of folks conflate goals with priorities and say, well, these are my goals, so I have to work my goals every day.
Right.
Well, priorities shift. That if my priorities are in alignment and I'm touching on these priorities, my goals may need to move, because my goals this week, I had no idea professionally my goals this week were even going to be my goals this week. That's not because I'm a hot mess. It's just because the environment, the market, things happen, right? Leaders don't do what they say they're going to do, whatever that may be. And so my goals this week had to change, but my priorities didn't. Make sense?
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, take another minute or so just to brag again about who you are, what your organization is, where people can find you, and any other asks or anything you want to share.
Yeah.
Close us out, big dog.
Yeah, let's go. Well, if you made it to the end of this podcast, I mean, golf clap for you. Well done. But yeah, you can find us, beautifulredemption.com. You can go to careportal.org and kind of poke around there. You can get everything you need through beautifulredemption.com. And my challenge would be, hey, just sign up as an individual. We need churches, we need businesses, we need individuals. The whole community can play a part in this. We really just need to bring the whole community together. That's what we're looking to do. So try it out. Open it up, open up the app, sign up, and look around and just see what's going on in there. You don't even have to respond to any of these requests, but take a look at it and help us spread the word, because that's really our goal, is to revolutionize the way that we care for vulnerable families in crisis. Like Uber is they do ride sharing. Everybody knows what it means to take an Uber. But like, we want to make care sharing as ubiquitous as ride sharing.
That's good.
To totally just recreate the landscape to where like, no, I have a way to care for my neighbor. I know how to do this. And a lot of people, I think, would like to help with things. They just don't know how. So now if they have that in their hand, be like, I could help somebody right now.
That's good. You should say that more. That's a really good explanation. So thank you so much for being on. I think you're going to call that like collaboration space and being like the Uber of helping people. I love that. We'll call that the fifth place.
Boom.
There you go. So you're welcome.
Fifth
you got
place.
That award.
Yes.
I promise I don't say that to everybody. I really don't. So,
No, thanks.
but seriously, thank you so much for being on. And
Thank you for having me.
Excited to see what you do in communities all over the world.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you.